Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Victor, and I'm going to be your anchor for this school's CyberOps, that is Cyber Security Operations Associate Training. It's a 28 module course on cyber security, very comprehensive. We've done the module one, the module two, and this is the module three. In the module one, we looked at the danger. What are those threats that we have inherent in our IT infrastructure, in people? You can even have threats in procedures. For instance, if to access an IT infrastructure, if to access a hard disk or a file, a website, you have vulnerability. The process through which you grant people access to a particular data, that process, that procedure, it can have a flaw. So a vulnerability or flaws are not just in critical IT systems. You can also have vulnerabilities in people. That's where social engineering comes in. Of course, you can have vulnerabilities both soft and hard, as I've just explained. So in module two, we looked at the SOC, right? The defenders in this cybersecurity operations center. Who are they? What do they do? The layers, tier one, tier two, tier three, and of course the SOC manager. Looked at some of the tools they're going to be using and some of the key performance index to measure the performance of how well they are doing in terms of cybersecurity. So in this third module, we want to lay some foundation in terms of our understanding of operating systems. Because look at it, your softwares, your applications, your networks, they are going to sit on systems. They're going to sit on either personal or server based, that is client or server based systems. And those systems are going to run an operating system. Your personal PC or a server PC or that's going to be in the cloud is going to run an operating system. It can be a Windows operating system, it can be a Linux operating system, it can be whatever. But as cybersecurity expert, it's very critical and important for us to understand these operating systems in great detail so that we can be able to see the inherent weaknesses and vulnerabilities in them, see how to mitigate these weaknesses, see how to patch these things, and see how to ensure and make sure that we are secured. So that's one of the reasons why we're looking at Windows operating system. And like I said earlier on, we want to make sure that we are power users or advanced users of these operating systems, i.e., Windows, Linux. Of course, you could go ahead and be able to understand in great detail what the Mac operating systems look like. But most servers, most um, IT hardwares, they are going to run that have to do with security. We typically most times run Linux operating systems in different flavors, either CentOS, Ubuntu, or Kali, or they're going to have the bare Linux operating system. Then either the SOC or the SEM or the SOA applications are going to sit on top of that. So going forward, Windows is a very most persons use Windows. So I'll be very, very brief and very swift as I go through this model. There are quite a lot of things we need to look at as we go through the 28 models. Things like forensic, things like threat intelligence, things like SOC, applications, things like uh, pen test tools, things like a whole lot, right? Quite a lot. So this is a very basic module. So I'll run through it very, very swiftly in the next 45 minutes or less. So what are our objectives? We want to describe, we want to understand the history of operating system, especially the Windows operating system. We want to see how each of them differ from each other. They want to see how do we configure, how do we monitor these operating systems, that is Windows in question, and how do we keep it secure. So there we're going to be looking at anti-malware, endpoint security, Windows update patch, and the rest. And there are some tools like the sys internal tools that you have within Windows that can help you notice an incident. For instance, if you have a backdoor in your operating system, how do you know? How do you know running services? How do you know those things that are in your background running without you being aware. Task manager might not be able to capture all of it, but you need some tools that are built together with Windows, but are most of the times administrative tools. That's why I said, as a cybersecurity expert or to be, or in the making, you want to be a power user. It then means that most of those administrative tools, you want to be able to be conversant with them, be able to use them to protect your operating system, because your operating system normally will say on the network, on the data, on the OS, on the data, because that's where everything sits on. The operating system is what all the other applications sit on. That's where you build your network. So without the operating system, you can't have any other thing. So that is the first thing you have on top of your hardware. If you have a mobile device, if you have a PC device, if you have a server hardware, it's the first thing that you run on it is an OS. Okay, Windows history, very, very basic things. MS-DOS, Windows started from 1985. It started with a graphical user interface. And MS-DOS, in your Windows, from your start bar, type CMD. It will open your CMD for you, which looks like something like this. And very basic commands that you should know. For instance, I will tell you to go look out top 20 command line tools for Windows. You need to master them. Things like check disk, fix MBR, dir, cd, copy, several of them. If you don't know them, the beauty about this operating system that you can even learn within the environment. So if you type CMD on your search bar, it opens up this stuff. Just type help, right? And hit enter. It will tell you at least up to 30 commands. And if you pick any of the commands, you type the commands, let's say dir slash question mark, hit enter. It's going to give you the details of that particular command and how to use them with an example kind of case study. Okay, so which are the commands? What commands do we have? So we have dir, cd. Cd is actually change directory. It then means that if I say dir, it's going to list all the files and folders I have within that directory. If I say cd directory, let's say I have a flash drive and is on F, I could come to my command prompt and say cd f colon. So it's going to get into the flash drive. So I could now do dir once on the flash drive. It's going to show me all of the files, all of the folders. I could now do cd, maybe CyberOps, maybe it's a folder inside the flash drive. cd something like this. I think I can demonstrate that. I will do the labs later on. So I type CMD on my command prompt. Sorry, on my Windows search bar, it comes out, and if I have a flash drive that have a files in it and I've checked it, it's F. I could do this, brother. Say CDF. I say get into this place. Once it opens that, I could run the dir command. It show me all the files there. I can now say cd into CyberOps. Right. So what does that do? So that gives me first, I say CMD. Once I'm CMD on my search bar, it opens up the command prompt interface, something like this. I say CDF if I have a flash drive. I say dir, it shows me all of the files and folders. I see a folder called CyberOps. I say cd into CyberOps. That opens. I can also say dir, it lists all of the files. Of course, you could delete files, you could find files, you could make directory. That's that I could make a new folder within this flash drive. So once I'm on this flash drive, if I want to make a folder, so I just say make a dir and I say a new folder, right? Once I hit enter, it's going to make a folder and that folder becomes active. Okay, so Windows has actually released up to 20 releases right from 1985 up to date. So these are some of the most recent ones, right? Like for instance, I've used 95, 98, when normally you will format a system or you fix a system using floppy disks. Floppy disks used to be 1.44 MB. It used to be a little bit harder to set up systems, configure systems, network systems. I could remember you to network Windows. 2000, for instance, you will need to run the Windows network tool on each of those devices. Of course, they all have to be connected. Then, whichever it's to be your server, you now run that on the server and tell it that you have others around it. Then that's how it's going to now be able to see all of those devices. But these days in 7, you had it more simplistic. Of course, after 98, you have, sorry, after 2000, you have XP. After XP, you have 7. After 7, you have Vista. Vista wasn't so much of a nice operating system. I think most of these things were covered in the Cisco IT Information Technology Essential course, right? So if you don't have any background with respect to tech IT, you might want to take that course so that you have very full grasp of um, tech in general. So Vista wasn't so successful, I would say, in my own terms, in terms of longevity, in terms of how many years the operating system stayed before it got phased out and a new version came up. So Windows 7 was very, very robust. XP 7 was very robust. 8 didn't last, right? It stayed for some time. Of course, 10 has been there for quite some while. So these are the versions. The thing about these versions is that each versions are going to have is going to have features specific to what the version entails. Hope for pro-educational, there are some features that you're going to see in pro-educational. In IoT cores, so you can use embedded systems like Arduino, Raspberry Pi. They are more configured for those kind of things. Okay, so of course you want to familiarize yourself with the Windows environment. Recycle B is always here. And the beauty about this is that you could most of these things you don't really not need to memorize them, but it's good you're aware where they are. If you're forgetting anything, you come to your search bar and you just search. If you search recycle bin here, you'll see a button, you tap on it and you can get to that place. Okay, what is very critical, important. Now, the purpose why we're learning operating systems and get to understand them is because of the vulnerabilities inherent in making these operating systems. It's a human being, it's somebody like you, me, that creates an operating system. So that means that they can have some um they can miss some things. They can have some flaws, some weaknesses while creating the application. An operating system is millions of codes, right? Bundled together to be able to perform stuff with different functions and features. So, because these operating systems are going to be vulnerable, there's no perfect software anywhere in the world. Most softwares are going to undergo several changes in terms of updates and patches. So in general, the goal is to gain unauthorized control of the computer, change permissions, and it can be privilege escalation. That's what the attacker will want to do. So what are some of these vulnerabilities? We have malwares, we have unknown or managed services. They can be running behind the scenes. That's why you need um, your sys internal tools. We're going to look at them later on. You want to run them and see what is happening in the background. Encryption, security policy. So what security policy have you configured on your PC? What are you allowing? What are you disallowing? What did you allow in terms of firewall? What did you disallow? Firewall, file and share permission, passwords, administrator. So what is the architecture? So you have the kernel is the core. Very important stuff you need to be aware of. So the kernel is the core of the operating system, right? That's what have control of the entire computer. And most malwares are going to target the kernel. So you want to make sure that you are doing stuffs like memory forensic. We looked at that in the previous digital forensic course. Then you want to be sure that you are checking all of your peripherals, like your printers, your hardware, your flash drive, all of those things, your cameras, because if this gets affected or if this gets vulnerable, that's why I see people close up their cameras. right? You also have boot sector malwares. So these are vulnerabilities that you can have within your operating system. Okay, yeah, so you have two different modes in which your PC operates. That is the computer has Windows installed at the user mode and the kernel mode. So once you have kernel mode, most times you have root access, and there's a whole lot you can do. So install applications runs in the user mode, operating system runs in the kernel mode. So if somebody grabs the operating system or have full control of that, there's a whole lot that can be done. So that's why most of the times you want to explore the principle of least privileges, right? Principle of least privileges. Okay, file systems. So Windows have several file system, exFAT, then HFS. Most smaller devices are going to run smaller, whatever, and bigger devices are going to run NTFS or EXT. Then, of course, your Mac is going to run HFS. So you need to be aware of these different file systems and the kind of applications or OS that use them. Okay. One thing you should also understand is that the Windows file system has the boot sector. So that's what does the your hard disk is a circle, a disk divided into sectors. You have your plate head that does the reading of the file on it. So data has been stored across. So you have your partition boot sector, your master file table, your system files, and of course your file area where you keep your files and whatever. So the NTFS, it's most new operating systems like from 7 upwards, they use NTFS. But it's possible. NTFS allows ADS, alternate data streams. It then means that we can have two files meshed together as one. So that's one of the characteristics of the NTFS file system. But that is a vulnerability, that's like a flaw. It then means that an attacker can store code within an ADS stream, that's an alternate data stream. So this is an example of where you have a text file and something else is added to it and can be bundled together, right? These concepts are mostly explained um, in steganography, where files are hidden. We've done that in digital forensic. We're still going to look at that more in this course. Where you have a file, you can add a text file, you have an image, you can have a text file, you have a video, you can add a text file. So people can add hide information. That's to say you can have more than one stream of data. So it's a characteristic of the NTFS file system, which can be a vulnerability because people can actually exploit that. Exploit that. So this just tells you how your Windows, what the boot process is like. So don't forget I said you have the boot viruses, malwares. You should know that malware is anything that causes or any software that causes system malfunction. So you have some that actually target your boot sector. So what happens is that your PCs, your basic input output system is initializing, goes through this, you does your the initialization of your devices, it gets to this file, it loads Windows, gets to this place. If you hibernated, this file takes into consideration of all of the things you've stored, then before it gets to you to log on. So if any malware eats up any of this file, it then means that you're going to boot up to a point, your system is going to be frozen. So you fixing most of these files either by PC repair, operating system repair, it's going to do all of that fix for you. Okay, what do we have here again? So Windows startup. So two things, the local machine and the current user. These are registry files. So you want to be careful when you're trying to adjust, edit, or make changes to your registry file because that's the heart of your operating system. So how do you get into the regedit? You say msconfig.exe, you run that tool, or you say msconfig within your search bar. You're going to get into that and you land your system registry. So, but like I said, be very careful because any changes there can make or mar your system. 5 tabs that contain the configuration options. So Windows Startup. So you have your normal loads, all drivers and services. Diagnosis load, only base device drivers and services. Selective allow the user to choose what load as startup. So, but this is optional. Uh, then of course boot. This is like your boot file. So you also have safe mode. This was very uh, common within the Windows XP series. There's what to call the last known good configuration. That means that you were running your system, maybe it crashed, something happened, so you restart your system. It will give you options. It will give you options for safe mode, safe boot. So it will give you options for last known good configuration. It will give you option for system repair, for system restore. It also give you option for recovery. So these are tools within the operating system that will help you fix your system in case you have any issues. Windows Startup, startup tools. There's a tool that I love using that we cover most of these things and in a very fanciful and nice way is your CC cleaner or C cleaner. It's a nice tool that you can use to, for instance, you want to know all of the tools running on your PC, all of the things you have in startup, all of the things you have in boot. You want to see all of that. Download this tool, run it. It's going to show you all of the things you have in startup. Have you wondered why you open your system? I mean, you start up your system and your system takes a whole lot of time to get to desktop, right? It's because of most of your items that you have in startup. Or it even gets to desktop and it takes for like 10, 15, 20 minutes just to free up your mouse for you to move around and do what you need to do. It then means that you have background services, you have startup files, or rather startup programs running, maybe that you don't need. Things like update, things like your, if you still use Yahoo Messenger or Skype or Zoom or Adobe Update Reader or Office Update, or if you're a developer, uh, MySQL Server, Apache, um, any um, background services. If you're a downloader, if you're a heavy downloader, maybe any torrent, if you do a lot of voice over IP communication, your tools. If you do what is this called again? Most of the times when you're installing these softwares, they ask you, do you want to run this software at startup? You should be very careful. So you shouldn't use generic uh, installation and configuration uh, options. Try to be custom so that you decide what should start up at what should run at startup. So once you decide that, what happens is that you minimize all of the things in your startup. You can actually install this tool and go remove all of the things you don't need. What now happens is that once your system starts up, it gets to desktop immediately, you can start using your system immediately. Okay, shut down, restart, hibernate. You should know the difference, right? Normally, your combination of these keys will do that for you. So shut down powers off. Restart, it powers off and turns on again. Hibernate keeps your what records of what you're doing so that you can easily come back to it after then. Task manager, Control Alternate Delete can get you to Task Manager. It shows your running processes. You could stop, you could see what is running at the software layer, background processes, and the rest. But I'll introduce you to other tools in your sysinternal suite that can give you quite a whole lot of more stuff than Task Manager will give you. Task Manager is just majorly for end users, but as somebody that is doing maybe forensic or cybersecurity analysis, you want to know more advanced tools that will give you great details of what is happening at the background. Okay, uh, yes, this is the same thing. Um, Now, you should understand that if you're running a 32-bit operating system, you can't use more than 4 gig. Your system will normally tell you 3.8 something or 9 something usable. So it's good you run a 64-bit, especially if your system can take that. So you can run as much as 8 terabytes of RAM, right? Virtual address space, which is the space your system used to work. That's your virtual RAM, right? Your virtual address, which is your RAM. Um, so your RAM allows creates a space that your system can work with, and if you have a 64-bit system, you could use more RAM. If you have 8 gig installed on the system or 16 gig and you're only a 32-bit system, you can't use all of that. You'll just be able to use only 4 gig. Okay. Anything important here? I've talked about registry file. You're very careful. That's what stores all of the information. I can remember a particular time I had a virus, a malware. Most antivirus tools couldn't get it out. What helped today was coming to system registry, tracing the file, the entry it's made on registry, and taking it off. So like I say, you have to be very careful. So this is what your registry looks like. What else again? Okay, on your lab, if for module 3, you want to check your sysinternals tool suite. So please just go on Google, type sysinternals tool Windows. You get to the Microsoft site, download the suite. It has roughly about, I think it's more than 30, right? We can discuss each of those tools and the advantages and most of the important ones. You have some that are not really, at least up to 10 tools there are very, very crucial and nice tools that you want to be using for your either forensic analysis, for your SOC analysis, for you to do, if you have an operation center, for you to be able to see what's running at the background, who is writing files to my registry, who is communicating to an outside IP address, who is receiving communication into the system and the rest. So those are kind of information you have when you run some of those internal tools. Okay, that's all for that. So configuration and monitoring. If you need to have privileged access, you want to run your file as an administrator, right? So you know you have in Windows, you have an administrator, you have a standard user, and you have a guest. That's the major 3 types of users. Okay. Anything critical and important here for me to pick? Normally, if you're running Windows servers, you have to place systems into groups, right? Maybe if you need to share printers, if you need to share files, if you need to share um, folders, if you need to share resources, you want to put everybody within a domain, right? So that configurations can be done as such. Okay, so like I said, if you want to get into the CLI, you type in CMD on your search bar and you get to that. Okay, what else makes sense? It's difficult now for Windows 10 to allow us to do system restore, really. Yes, for the past 6 months to 1 year, it's becoming critically important. Sorry, critically difficult. I guess because Windows is trying to fight piracy, Windows is trying to keep tab of every PC they have their OS installed on. So most of the times you have sporadic updates happening every now and then, and the system will not be able to keep track of your restore points. So your restore points are major events that happens in your PC when you install the software, when you create configuration files, when you run some configuration with respect to your network, with respect to your domain, if your system is on a network. So those important moments, your system creates restore points. It then means if something goes wrong and you want to restore your system back to a previous state, on your search bar in Windows, you just need to type system restore. You tap on that button, it will tell you how far do you want to go back. It will give you several dates. You pick any of them, and your system will go through some process and restart and take you back. But the thing is that any configuration, any installation, any software that you've done after that date, up to now, you will not be able to have that. But it will give options to say if you want to keep your files or if you want to allow your files to go. But like I said, Of recent, it's becoming increasingly difficult to do system restore. So net start, net command to give you information about network resources, who's communicating to who and the rest. Okay, so you have things like net accounts, net sections, net share, net start, net stop, net use, and net view. Right? Net view very important. Right? Net sessions, then of course net accounts. You want to know what is happening. We normally say for security experts, if you create systems in place to secure your IT infrastructure, if you don't monitor, then it's good as you've not done anything, right? So you need to be able to have monitoring tools. That's why the title of this module is System uh, Windows Operating System, and of course, you want to learn about configuration and monitoring. You want to be able to monitor the operating system. Yes, we talked about Task Manager. This explains each of them. Processes. Like you see, each of these tab, process, performance, app history, startup, users. So if I have 3 users logged in at this machine, by the time I get into Task Manager, how do I get to Task Manager? Control, alternate, delete, right? And to give you options to restart the system, to shut down, to log off, and Task Manager. If you click Task Manager, you come into this environment. So this processes tells us all of the things running, categorized, and how much of CPU usage it's taking, how much memory, how much disk space, how much network. I once asked my students like 5, 6 years ago, between all of the browsers that you know, which is most what word will I use now? Prudent in terms of resource usage. Funny enough, most people think Chrome is fast, but no, Chrome will use more of your resources. It will use more of your network resources. It will move more of your CPU RAM. But funny enough, Edge is very lightweight. That's why in banking, in most places where they want secure system, they will normally use Edge, right? It's a Microsoft tool. It has a little bit more security, and it uses less system resources compared to Firefox, compared to Chrome. Okay, same thing here, resource monitor. So these are all the things I just explained. It will tell you the RAM usage, your disk usage, and of course your network usage, how much bandwidth each of them is picking up. You could take up a networking course, either CCNA1, CCNA2, CCNA3. That Cisco CCNA1 is introduction to networking. CCNA2 is routing, switching, and wireless essentials. CCNA3 is enterprise networking, security, and automation, right? Let me list it here. So the first Cisco networking course is Intro to Networking. Next one is routing and switching, wireless essentials, um, routing and switching. Then the last Cisco course is I have all of these certifications, by the way. And the last one is enterprise networking, security, and automation. Of course, you now have CCNP, Encore, and the um, advanced. So this is CCNA1, the CCNA2, the CCNA3. So let me just, let me just use the pipe command or pipe and pipe it here. Good. So you want to take a proper networking course. But So the Cisco CyberOps assumes that you have some of this basic knowledge, right? So if you go to network and sharing, you can find this in your control panel, right? Or on your search bar in Windows, you just search for network and sharing. You get all this place. So it can tell you, show if you're connected to the internet or you're not connected. If you tap on change adapter settings, it will show you all of the adapters you have, both your wireless and both your hardware, rather wireless and your LAN. If you have any other adapter that you've installed on your system, maybe if you're running Wireshark or if you're running a VPN or if you're running anything network-based tool, at times they might add another adapter so that you connect through to the internet through that adapter. So you see everything there when you click on uh, change adapter settings. Okay, so this is it. Once you click on change adapter settings, so this is what you find. So this is the LAN. You have your wireless, you have your, if you have VPN or any other adapter. So at times when you connected to a network and you have connectivity issues, a very simple way for you to troubleshoot that is for you to come to this section, this area, right click disable to turn it off completely, and you right click again after some seconds and you enable. You can also diagnose, so to run through some process and do some Windows diagnostics processes and try to fix the problem. So it's a very simple, straightforward troubleshooting technique you can use whenever you have network issues, provided your intermediary device, which is your router or your switch or whatever, does not have any issues. So you're trying to troubleshoot at the end point at your system level. Okay, so you could have IP version 4 addresses, you can have IP version 6 address. So you can also right click that guy and go to properties, and you're going to see most PCs still use IP version 4. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 sections of three digit numbers. Um, you can use dynamic or static. Okay, normally if you run net start, you're going to see all of the running connections you have within your system. There's a tool in your sys internal suite that can help you do this. I think it's called TCPIP View. Yes, that's the name. It's called TCPIP View. Right. So what this tool does is that it gives you more detail than in the graphical. Uh, it won't tell us the port. This is the protocol. This is the address. It tells us the port number. Tell us the URL even. It tells us whether it's established, whether it's waiting for a connection or whether it's idle. So I think this is a better tool to use in order to look at this, right? So it's still in the sys internals tools, like I said later on. Get to the Microsoft site, download this, and you could start getting your hands dirty. Okay, so remote computing. Funny enough, Windows is behind. They've used more better remote computing platforms like the. Today we have Zoom, we have TeamView, we have AnyDex, we have several other tools. So these are tools that you can use for remote computing, right? Okay, for Windows Server, you want to understand the services. So your DNS is your domain name server or domain name system. Every server is going to have a name, like an identification name. Of course, every server or every IP assigning device, for instance, your router, is going to run a DHCP, a dynamic host configuration protocol, to be able to assign dynamic IP address to users. For instance, if you come on a network, you have to be given an IP address. So what does that? It's DHCP server. You have that in your server or you have that in your within your router. So it scans and checks for available IP address and assigns one to you if you are on dynamic. If the system is on static, it then means the network administrator will have to assign an IP address for you. Okay, so of course, network controller, HyperV network virtualization. So this is just a hypervisor. What can help you mimic an operating system? File system, SMB, NFS, DFS, FTP, HTTP, HTTPS. And of course, you want to understand these things as regards a Windows server. So these are services that are run within our Windows Server environment. Now, a very basic lab. Can you create a user account on Windows? Can you change the account? Can you escalate the privilege to make it an admin, to make it a user? Can you create a guest account? You want to be able to do that. Okay, can you use the PowerShell or can you use the command prompt interface? Don't forget I said you need to learn at least 20 command line interface uh, commands, right? My CLI commands, like I said, netstart, dir, cd, change directory, mkdir, make directory, and several others. Ping, um, what's it called again? What's this one again? Trisart, and so many others. You want to be able to master them. And like I said, if you're forgetting, like the way I'm forgetting, kind of being rusty, you could go to the command line interface and just type help. If you type help, you see all of the commands. You can pick any one and leave a space slash uh, question mark, hit enter. You're going to see how you can be able to use that command. Okay, like I said, the Windows Task Manager, we've talked about that. Control alternate delete, you get to the Task Manager. So you hit your control, you hit your alternate, you hit your delete button, to get into what's it called? Your Task Manager. System resources. Don't forget, download the sys internal tool. Sys internal tools. It's by Microsoft. It's open source. It's free. It's a company actually that Microsoft bought over, and that team, the guy I think is Russian based. His team maintains that tool, and they update it from time to time. So it's good you explore that tool. It's on Microsoft site, and it has several administrative applications within it. Okay, Windows security. Let's start. You want to see running connections. Like I said, you can use the TCPIP View to do that. This is what it looks like. This is more or less like in a DOS environment, but if you use the TCPIP, you get more detailed info. For event viewer, you want to see what's happening. This is one of the administrative tools. So Windows have several administrative tools. So how do you get to that? You go to your command prompt. Sorry, you go to your search bar in Windows and you type administrative tools. There are more than 20 of them. So these are some of them, right? Uh, Windows updates. I'm very skeptical when it comes to update. I want to make sure that my hardware is compatible with whichever updates I'm going to be downloading. So you have to be careful about patches because you can patch update a system and the next minute your operating system is not going to work well while you're having compatibility issues. Okay. If you're running an Active Directory or you're in a server environment, Defender, you want to make sure that you have an anti-malware. We're talking about security. Configured on your system, get an anti-malware, get a antivirus, use top brands, AVG, ESET, Northern, Kaspersky. Most of these guys, they do the same thing, right? The most important thing is that whichever you're using, make sure it's a genuine license and make sure you are updating. Okay, I think that is all for the Windows Defender. So you could easily turn off your Defender. Make sure that every time you come, you tap on your search bar and go to firewall. Make sure these things are turned on. Because if not turned on, you could have remote access to your system without knowing. And some applications can turn them on off without your knowing. So it's good you turn them on so that they're actually protecting your system. Okay, summary. What have we looked at in this very, very lengthy module? We looked at the Windows operating system. Started, I think, 1985. Started real versions, GUI versions from 93, you have 95, you have 98, you have 2000, you have XP. I think there was something that looks like ME, but at that point, early 2000, 2000, 2001, nobody was sure if that ME version was one of these pirated versions from India or it's a another version from Microsoft. So if you check the log or the version history, you will see 98, 90, 2000. You will see XP is the next thing. XP came out 2425. Then you have Vista. Then you have 7. Then you have 8. You have 8.1. Then you have 10. Now you have 11. So you want to understand these operating systems and see how they differ. Okay, I think that's all. So what are some of the new words that we've learned? Terms, commands. So you have them here. I've explained the ADS, how your boot happens, your system boots up, it follows through some process. What else again? I can remember during Windows 95, 98, most of the times what you need to be fixing is going to be doing check disk chk dsk, then you do f fix mbr, the master boot record, because that's what is responsible for the PC booting up. If it's corrupted, your system wouldn't get to uh, desktop. Okay, thank you very much. It's been a log section. It's about 46 minutes. This is I said it's an overview of the entire module 3. So you want to make sure that you have access to the Cisco Learning Management System. Make sure you do your labs. If you have issues, if you have questions, please ask on the mentorship group. And don't forget to take your notes. We have quite a lot of exams to write, and we want to start writing exams maybe from next week. Thank you very much. See you in module 4.